If there is one rule in Washington over the last 25 years, and I had to pick one universal, unyielding rule that has proven true, it is that when the establishment wings of both parties unite in overwhelming numbers in the name of national security, that has as its primary purpose seizing greater power for itself in the name of protecting Americans from whatever foreign threat or domestic threat they claim is immediately the scariest, very bad things always end up taking place. And I would suggest that the level of skepticism that we as American citizens ought to have should be at its highest exactly when both parties are telling us that there is some foreign or domestic threat that is so scary and so dangerous and so grave that the only way to stop it is to hand over more power to the federal government and to the executive branch agencies in the U.S. security state in order to stop it. This is an idea that has been lurking around Washington for a long time, to ban TikTok and to ban it on the grounds that the Chinese control TikTok and are using it to spy on our youth and to propagandize American citizens, and yet it's really not gone anywhere. All of that has changed radically, dramatically, in the last several weeks in a way that is extremely rare in Washington to watch the two parties come together in a virtually unanimous way and decide that not only is a legislative measure of this significance urgently necessary, but it has to happen immediately. They're using legislative maneuvers they almost never use to catapult it to the top of the agenda. Let's just leave aside for a minute your views on the merits of the bill. I know a lot of you believe that TikTok is a company, an app that is controlled by the Chinese government, that Americans don't go there and express their own views. They're somehow mind controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, that the Chinese Communist Party manipulates Americans into believing things that China wants them to believe, that there's all kinds of spying going on TikTok, even though I've never heard an answer to what kinds of data the Chinese can get from TikTok about Americans that they can't just buy on the open market, that's collected and sold by Google and Facebook and other big tech giants that collect and curate all sorts of private data about Americans, then sell it to advertisers and sell it on the open market, sell it even to the US security state. But let's leave aside for a second the issue of whether this is a good or bad bill, whether it's a good idea to try and expel China from being in the United States via TikTok. And we have covered at length all of these issues about whether TikTok really is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, whether there's any evidence it's being used to propagandize Americans. Let's leave all of that to the side. I want to focus on this question. Why is it that a bill that has been around Washington for 4 years and that has made almost no progress in being turned into law, and there's a lot of reasons for that. TikTok is a very powerful company. They have a lot of lobbyists that work for them. American politicians are afraid of banning TikTok because of how many tens of millions of people, including young people, use it and the rage that would ensue if it actually got banned. Why suddenly in the last 4 weeks is there this explosion of bipartisan unity and willingness to take the leap, to hold hands? Pretty much the whole gang of Washington are all ready now to join together and to do this. Why? Why did that suddenly happen in the last, say, 3 months? Why would you want to eliminate one of the social media apps, especially the one that the American government has the greatest difficulty in controlling, and consolidate even more power in the hands of the US security state to determine what platforms Americans can use and therefore the types of information to which they can and cannot be exposed? There are mainstream outlets that have done a lot of reporting, including ones that people generally find more trustworthy than others, that provide the answer to this question. There are media outlets asking this question. Why is it that suddenly this bill has taken on so much force? One of the outlets that asked this question and provided the answer is the Wall Street Journal in a news article earlier this week entitled, quote, "How TikTok was blindsided by a US bill that could ban it. Executives of the app thought they had fended off these attacks. Behind the scenes, lawmakers and Biden officials were working to force its ban or sale." Why is that? Here's the Wall Street Journal's explanation. Quote, Jacob Hellberg, a member of a congressional research and advisory panel called the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, has been working on building a bipartisan bi-coastal alliance of China hawks, united in part by their desire to ban TikTok. It was slow going until October 7th. So this was a bill that was having a great deal of difficulty until October 7th. October 7th, of course, was the day that Hamas attacked Israel, setting off this horrific war that's still ongoing into its 6th month of Israel destroying Gaza. Why would October 7th, a conflict between Hamas and Israel, what would that have to do with suddenly taking a bill ostensibly about China and that was slow going and then suddenly accelerating it? Here's the Wall Street Journal, quote, "The attack that day in Israel by Hamas and the ensuing conflict in Gaza became a turning point in the push against TikTok." So that's the answer so far from the Wall Street Journal. What changed in the last few months was October 7th. And yet the people in Congress looked at a social media platform called TikTok that for years they were fine with having exist and saw that there were too many criticisms of Israel being permitted to proliferate on the platform. And it is that finding about Israel, not about China, which according to the Wall Street Journal is what accelerated and then caused this massive urgency to ban TikTok. Are you comfortable with that?